Well, good morning, everybody. Lois Frankel here, one of the members of Congress for this area. Thank you for joining us. We are here in beautiful Curry Park in West Palm Beach, and I'm joined today by the mayor of the city, West Palm Beach, Keith James, Jake Leech, Dr. Jake Leech, I should say, from the Palm Beach County Office of Resilience, and Jeremy McBryan, Palm Beach County Water Resource Manager. And we're here to showcase another piece of President Biden's Historic Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. It's the largest investment in American infrastructure in a century. And today, with my guests, we're going to discuss new funding opportunities for cities and counties through this new act to address flooding and how to build a more climate resilient infrastructure as we face the threat of climate change. And listen, I think we all know this. If anyone's been caught in a flooded road or had a water seeping into their homes, flooding damages not only the roads, our homes, our buildings. It makes it harder to get to work, harder to get to commerce, harder to get to school. And getting salt water in someone's car is obviously damaging to the engine and very costly. And we also know that frequent flooding can affect the cost of flood insurance in someone's area. So this new infrastructure law that the president recently signed is going to add over $4.5 billion in 2 new grant programs to address this flooding problem. And the states and the counties are going to be able to access this through and these are 2 programs, the Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities Program and the Flood Mitigation Assistance Program. The Mayor James, I'm going to tell you how they're going to try to access this money, and then we're going to talk to our county representatives who will talk about inland flooding as well, and how these projects are going to protect our homes and our businesses. And not only that, this program is estimated to create over 700,000 jobs per year in this nation for the next 10 years. Now, we're going to turn this over to the mayor of this beautiful city, Keith James.
Thank you, Congresswoman Frankel. Thank you also, Congresswoman, for your leadership in Washington and for being such a tireless advocate on behalf of the city of West Palm Beach. We truly appreciate your support. So this morning, I'm pleased to share that the city of West Palm Beach is indeed applying for grants that are going to be made available through the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. Through this law, significant funds are being made available, which could help the city address some very significant problems. You know, as sea levels continue to rise, tidal flooding will continue to be an ongoing challenge for neighborhoods adjacent to the Intracoastal Waterway. We continue to see nuisance flooding along several sections of our Flagler Drive, particularly during king tide or heavy rain events. Now, the city is currently executing plans to harden the resiliency of our infrastructure to current and future environmental threats. Our goal is to protect life and property and to ensure our city's vibrancy and viability for future generations. We are evaluating and implementing near-term and long-term strategies to combat sea level rise. Now, these strategies come with a hefty price tag, however. For example, we have previously announced our installing tidal valves at stormwater outfalls along the Lake Worth Lagoon. Tidal valves will help prevent nuisance flooding by preventing seawater from backing up into the drainage infrastructure while still allowing the outfall to drain. Now, we're installing 18 of these tidal valves at a price of $800,000. However, we do need more tidal valves. The city intends to install an additional 25 tidal valves, costing a total of $2.5 million. Now, this is going to put a tremendous strain on the city's stormwater funding, so receiving additional funds from the federal government will enable the city to apply budgeted stormwater funds toward other existing stormwater needs. A second example, on the north end of Flagler Drive, only steps from where we stand now, the city is paying for infrastructure engineering design work to help with tidal and rainfall flood mitigation. Implementation of these mitigation measures is expected to cost in excess of $2 million. Now, we have received a commitment of state funding to assist with some of this, and we're very appreciative to the state, but additional funds are needed. And a third example, the city has identified a need to evaluate the entire seawall along Flagler Drive to determine what design changes are needed in order to mitigate the long-term impacts of significant sea level rise. The planning effort alone, just the planning, would cost in excess of $1.5 million. And long-term seawall design fixes could run into tens of millions of dollars. So these federal dollars being made available through the infrastructure law are critical to the city of West Palm Beach as we work to implement strategies to help mitigate sea level rise impacts in our neighborhoods. The city of West Palm Beach is grateful that funds are being made available to communities through the Infrastructure Investment and Job Act. Again, I am appreciative to Representative Frankel, who understands the city's infrastructure needs to combat these threats and corresponding sea level rise. Thank you very much, and thank you again, Congresswoman. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Mayor, for sharing some of the issues here in West Palm Beach. And just to emphasize that this infrastructure money is going to be available up and down Florida, north to south, and not only to help the folks on the coast, but also the inner parts of our county and state. And we have folks from the county who will talk about that.
Hi, Dr. Jake Leech. I'm with the Palm Beach County Office of Resilience. Thank you, Congresswoman Frankel, and thank you, Mayor James, for joining us today. As we've said, king tide flooding, nuisance flooding on the coast, these are all issues that people in Palm Beach County really have to face. And we call it nuisance flooding, but it's more than that. As the Congresswoman mentioned, it closes homes, it damages businesses, it can damage vehicles, so this is really an issue for us. We also have to contend with the inland flooding. Flooding isn't just a coastal issue. We get heavy stormwater flooding in the interior of the county, and that's something we have to deal with too. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration has released yesterday a new report that suggests that by 2050, moderate flooding may occur 10 times more often as it does today. So this is certainly something that we need to take care of and start investing in. Sea level rise and climate change affects all of our communities. We have a complex water situation in the county. We have Lake Okeechobee, we have wetlands, we have canals, we have the ocean, and these issues really cross jurisdictional boundaries. Climate change and sea level rise and floods don't recognize boundaries between jurisdictions. That's why it's so important that we work together, the county, with the municipalities, with Congress, with federal, state agencies, with special drainage districts and other local jurisdictions to really work on this. The county is already using federal funds to look into vulnerability assessments to assess the effects of climate change on our communities. That includes flooding issues. We are using federal funding. We anticipate using that to strategize on how best to make our stormwater infrastructure more resilient. And we're really appreciative that we have this bipartisan infrastructure law that hopefully is going to bring more funding that we can all use, everybody in the county, everybody in Southeast Florida, to deal with flooding issues, climate change issues, and work on adaptation and mitigation. Thank you.
Hey, good morning. Jeremy McBryan. I'm the Palm Beach County Water Resources Manager. And again, we appreciate being invited here today to this event. Just want to follow up a little bit about what Dr. Leech said. Sea level rise and storm surge from extreme weather events are making our flooding conditions worse in this area. And like Jake said, not just the nuisance flooding that we experience, but also we're now seeing more damaging flooding events. And so, we're here on the shores of the Lake Worth Lagoon estuary where we know there's some impacts occurring, but there are also inland effects that we're starting to see. And so it starts with some of the regional assessments that are being done by the Water Management District and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to understand, the deficiencies within their systems. And then the next step is for cities and counties to take the initiative and evaluate and make improvements to their systems. Those improvements to the flood protection system can make a meaningful impact on flood insurance rates for homeowners and businesses. And the county has been committed to those activities for a long time. So again, we appreciate being here. We look forward to working with the representative and the Biden administration and the state of Florida to advancing these projects to improve flood protection throughout the county. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, this is not what we call the most thrilling issue, but as sea level rises, as we know it is, as we fight climate change, it's so important to be more resilient now and in the future. And flooding is affecting lives every day when we have the big storm surges, whether it's property damage to the home, to the business, to your car, to getting around, to the cost of your insurance. This new job and infrastructure law is going to give opportunities for our counties and our cities across this state and across the nation, while creating millions of new jobs. It's going to create opportunities to have safer living conditions for ourselves now and our children in the future. So I thank my guests and see if anyone has any questions. Could you guys hear what was being said? Sort of? Okay. Any questions of anybody? Otherwise, great. Thank you so much for being here.